Okay, when you have a disability and you are considering getting a service dog, it is a two-way street. The service dog does help take care of you, but you obviously also need to take care of the service dog. So I want to address yet another question that I get a lot, and that is, what is the time requirement for having a service dog? Especially compared to a regular dog, but just day to day, how much actually goes into caring for a service dog? Because a lot of people who are sick enough to be considering a service dog don't have it in them to take care of a dog. I'm hoping that this will help those of you who are considering getting a service dog make a more informed choice about whether or not you have a lifestyle that a service dog could fit into. I'm going to do my best right now to explain to you that I actually think that having a service dog is more work than having a regular dog, and here is why. Before I was disabled, or certainly before I had a service dog, I naively assumed that a service dog would be less work than a regular dog because they're so well behaved. I've watched kids a lot before, and the kids who are rowdy are a lot more work than the kids who are not rowdy. That's also been my experience with dogs. There are dogs that you take around the block and they're like bang, 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 bang. A lot of work. Versus a service dog stands next to you in a heel. How hard is it to walk a service dog? But that's wrong. It turns out the opposite is true. Service dogs are really well behaved because of the extra time and care that goes into them. It's not the other way around. Behind that super well behaved dog is its handler, a human who has put in countless hours of training not only into the dog, but into themselves to learn how to better manage their dog. It's a big undertaking even if you get a program dog. I did do a video sometime last year called The Truth About Having a Service Dog. And that was more about the feelings about having a service dog, if I remember correctly. I don't think that that was about the practicality and the actual time requirement that it takes to have the service dog. So this video, once again, I'm trying to get tangible. I hope that it's thought-provoking for those of you who have this on your mind right now. And other service dog handlers, please do chime in below on things that you agreed with, things that you think I was off on, or other things that you have in your routine that maybe I don't have in mind that other people might also need to hear about. I love sharing the benefits of having a service dog with you, even the unexpected benefits of having a service dog, to encourage those of you who are on the fence to think about it as a viable option. But I feel like it's also my responsibility as a handler to be realistic with you and tell you that it's not all happy-go-lucky rainbow and sunshines like on your Instagram squares. It's just like having a baby. You guys see the cute little baby pictures? You don't see what I went through recovering from that delivery behind closed doors. This isn't as dramatic as that, but I hope that this gives you a glimpse into exactly how much really goes into keeping one of these dogs up to par. The way that I feel about dogs is that they are social, but they're emotional. We know that they're social compared to some of the other animals because we can see the whites of their eyes. That's just a scientific thing. Visually, you can see that they play with each other regularly, and we know that they get really happy and really sad based on things that actually are good or bad in their environment. Wolves even sometimes celebrate by howling after a kill. These are very social and emotional animals. However, they also have the primitive rat brain. Dogs peak at about the intelligence level of a toddler, and they're not equipped with brains like ours that are made for processing these complex emotions. So as a result, dogs get bigger emotions than humans, and it's harder for them to control those emotions. Example, zoomies. Literally so happy by usually a stick or a person that they like that they cannot control their bodies, and they're just ching, 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 ching. So when it comes to having a dog, a service dog that you need to have a mental connection with, I think it's really important to consider not only that they're socially intelligent, but that they're emotionally vulnerable. And actually, those two things are why we decided to introduce Buddy to the prong collar. Probably not what you were expecting me to say there, but I've got a video about that coming out next week, so make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss it. Since we're doing a plug thing right now, I'm also going to plug that on Patreon, there is going to be an announcement in July. I don't know when I'm going to make the announcement on YouTube, but I have decided to let Patreon know in July. Patreon.com/mommingwithmigraine. Link's always in the description. So, when you're bringing this really smart but incredibly emotional being into your home, I think that it's incredibly important to treat that dog as a family member. That's another thing that I've said more than once on my channel. The dog is not a pet. The dog is not a rug to just ignore, feed, and take around the block once a day. The dog deserves to be said good morning to. The dog should be included in family activities. The dog should know where it belongs. It should have structure in its day. The dog should get good night pets, treats, mental stimulation, just because it's a dog. And that's not including all of the stuff because it's a service dog. I'm going to come in with some tough love. If you don't have time to take care of a trained parrot, then you do not have time for a service dog. Point blank. Let's say you want a service dog to pick up items off the floor for you, and let's say you need that several times per day. Well, getting that dog is also going to add you needing to reach down and change out its water several times per day. That's not something that your service dog can do on its own. So be real with yourself. Does the addition of what the service dog can do for you actually make up for the inconvenience of taking care of the dog? I don't mean inconvenience in a bad way, obviously. But is that a net positive in your life? Or if you have a big dog for mobility or for balance, like I have Buddy, how are you going to carry its giant bags of food in from the grocery store? You can have an employee help you when you're at the store, but you need another plan for when you get home. There's just a million little tiny things like that make it really difficult. Even stuff like grooming. If it's difficult to bend over, it may be difficult for you to brush the dog. So then you need to pay for someone else to groom the dog. You've got to pay attention to eyes, ears, nose, mouth, teeth, nails, flea, tick, heartworm, keep up with the vet visits. It's a lot of responsibilities. It's a huge mental toll on someone who already has a huge mental toll. And another example, every time I go to the grocery store, I bring Buddy to the park first. It's an extra step, but it helps him burn off steam, it helps us bond and get in a good, playful mode together, and it makes him more engaged with me at the grocery store. But the grocery store is already going to be difficult for me to conquer. So adding that extra step, needing to reach down and pick up the poop, needing to remember to bring him water for afterwards, and a towel to clean off his lips so that he's not drooling all over the grocery store. I mean, all of these are little things that I need to consider before I go to the store. For a lot of people, it would be easier to just get grocery pickup instead. A lot easier than having the service dog. I think I've mentioned before, but I wouldn't be able to take care of Buddy on my own. I do rely on my husband to help me with taking care of the dog. I do his treats and stuff so that he stays bonded to me. He obviously only works and tasks for me, but I cannot be the only one who's taking him out to use the bathroom because I can't go outside 6 times a day regularly. My body's not reliable enough for standing up to do something like that. I can't do, an hour-long walk for him every single day. He's a big dog. He needs to get a lot of energy out. I'm a sick person. I can't help with getting all of that energy out. But if he didn't have a lot of energy and he wasn't able to be engaged and active, then he wouldn't be active enough to be able to be my service dog and be able to have the active life that I do have when I am feeling well. It's freaking hard, guys. I've already touched on some of these things, but I have just a written out list of the ways that a service dog takes up your time, and I have it broken up into 3 different categories. One is time because they're a pet and they need care. The second is time to keep up their training. And the third is time to accommodate them in public, because that's a real thing. So let's start with things because they're a pet. This one's simple, I think, but obviously food and water, changing out their water a lot. They need a daily walk. A couple of walks would be better. It's really important for pet dogs to have mental stimulation and structured time where they know where they are to be, where they are not just free roaming and able to do whatever the heck they want. That's just responsible dog ownership. Pet dogs need monthly medications, vet visits. Every so often they need grooming. As I mentioned, you've got eyes, ears, nose, mouth that all need to be taken care of. You need to take care of their paws if the sidewalk is hot, sweaters if it's cold, cooling vest if it's too warm. And in addition, your house gets dirtier too. Not just because of shedding, but because of the dust that gets brought in. Pets also obviously need love, attention, lots of pets, and eye contact. Undivided attention where you're not just on your phone rubbing them with your feet. Your dog deserves to be paid attention to every day. Do you have the spoons for that? And it's also important to keep up with training for treats. All dogs should know their sit, stay, down, paw, come, the standard things. So you've got to practice those too. Now, training for being a service dog, a whole other ball game. Takes a lot more time, takes a lot more upkeep, and it's a lot more mentally taxing on the handler because it's not as simple as paw. It's really complex maneuvers where you're moving both of your bodies, and as a handler, you need to pay attention to a lot of things like what leg you're stepping with first can mean different things to the dog. So as a handler, not only are you making verbal commands, you also have to pay attention to where your treat hand is, because you don't want to just leave that in your pouch. You need to pay attention to what foot you're using. It's like a lot when you're a migraine-y person. And it's a lot to learn all that stuff when you're a migraine-y person, to be able to then teach it to your dog. You also need to be clear with your partner or whoever it is that's helping you with your dog about exactly what the rules are going to be for the dog so that it's always consistent. I personally do not do any training outings because I don't have the spoons. I combine my training outings with my whatever errand I'm doing. So if Buddy and I go to the grocery store and there's a Halloween stand out and it triggers him a little bit, he gets a little bit spooked, well, I guess we're going to spend 5-10 minutes wandering around this Halloween thing so that that never happens again. You got to leave time for that. You got to leave spoons and energy for that. Or let's say we go in and there's another team, and usually Buddy will just walk by the other team, but he hasn't run in a while, so he's super excited now. Okay, maybe time to go decompress the dog. Sometimes you do need to tell the dog, all right, we're gonna settle down a little bit, get back in the zone. Or maybe you guys need to do a little bit of training just to get him re-engaged. You know, they're not service robots. They do have off days sometimes because you weren't able to exercise them or you haven't been paying close enough attention to them so they're not feeling engaged with you. But sometimes it's just because it's that kind of day. I have off days. He has off days. You need to leave extra time and extra energy to be able to deal with those punches when they come. Last but not least, time to accommodate the dog in public. Let's say you run into an access issue and you need to argue your case for 30 minutes. Did you leave 30 minutes of extra time for that? Molly Burke actually just posted a video, I'll link it here if I am able to, where she expressed that she was late to an interview and very frazzled during an interview because she was denied access to an Uber with her guide dog twice in a row, and that made her 30 minutes late to work. You'd think that this is unusual, but it isn't. And if you don't want to run into problems like that, you can call ahead. That's something that I highly recommend. I actually found out during that trip in Utah that certain tours were exempt from allowing service dogs, and had I not called ahead, I wouldn't have known that when I got there I would have been denied access legally. That said, even when you do call ahead, sometimes you get there and it's a different employee and it doesn't matter that there's a note on your chart and they're going to deny you access anyway, or they're going to try. And you're going to need to sit there and be polite and patient and talk them through why it is your right to have your service dog with you. For errands and long travel, you need to schedule in your potty breaks for the dog, general rest breaks, and running around breaks for the dog. They need time to have fun, they need time to have water, they need time to stretch their legs. Sometimes traveling in general can be slower if accommodations need to be made. One example of this, there was a bus where they had to kind of like move some seats. They kind of like moved a little, I don't know how to describe it, but they moved in order to allow a wheelchair to fit in that spot. Most places don't need to do anything that dramatic in order to accommodate a service dog, but sometimes there are accommodations that are made because you have a service dog. Let me think of an example. Oh yeah, like an ATV tour. Buddy loves ATVing. It's like one of his favorite things. If an ATV drives by, that's actually something that gets him pretty excited. With the ATVing tour, they decided to put my husband and Buddy and I in an ATV alone so that my husband could be in the front and I was in the back seat with just me and Buddy. That was an accommodation that they were happy to make, that we were happy to receive. It helped not bother other people who may have been taking the tour, but it took a little bit of extra time. There's just a little bit of slower travel in that. And I guess same thing when you're going to an airport. You need time after you get through security and everything, undress, redress your dog for security, and then you also need to bring the dog to go to the bathroom. You probably also want to take the opportunity to do some training with the dog. Time, energy, the two most precious things when you're sick. And all of those things that I just mentioned for when you're boarding a plane need to happen when you're getting out of the car to go into the grocery store. I don't get out of my car and then walk into the store. I get out of my car, I walk around, I let the dog out, but we have to do it properly. So I open it and I make sure that he stays. And then I release him, make sure he sits. And then I get him dressed, make sure he doesn't release himself. And then I tell him he can heel. I mean, this is a lot of steps. It's a lot of up, down, looking around, making sure that I'm paying attention to other people too. It's a lot. So I hope that this long, exhaustive list of random things that go into having a dog or a service dog helps you out in your journey to deciding whether or not one is right for you. Do you have time in your life for a service dog? How did this video change your perception of that? I'd love to know in the comments. I'd actually like to pose a question for all of the service dog handlers out there. I will pin a comment asking this as well. But if you were to guess how many hours per day you spend caring for or attending to your service dog, how many hours would you guess? How much time do you think you spend on normal dog stuff, and how much extra time do you add on just getting the dog ready and keeping up its training? I can tell you guys all I want what I think, but that's just me. I can't speak for all handlers, so I definitely want handlers in particular to chime in, because when I was considering having a service dog, this is information that I would have loved to have. All right, I hope you guys have an awesome weekend. That is it for me. I'm gonna go give Buddy some pets. It's hard to talk about Buddy without giving him pets. Bye. Hey guys, it's Jen from the future. I wanted to tell you a quick story that just happened. Literally, I stopped filming and I went and ran an errand, and a perfect example of how a service dog is not always the most convenient thing in the world popped right up. Buddy and I went to check our P.O. box, and when we got there, there was a dog that was tied to a post outside. That is a huge barrier to entry for somebody who has a service dog, because if that dog was a service dog, they would be inside with the owner. So since they're outside, I'm assuming they're not trained to ignore dogs that are walking by. In the past, dogs that were tied outside of stores have not really been welcoming to Buddy and I trying to enter the store. Unfortunately, it's a super hot day, so I couldn't leave Buddy in the car even for a few minutes, and I didn't have another human with me to stand outside of the car with him or walk him around while I was inside. So Buddy and I sat in the car in the air conditioning until that person left with their dog before we could go and enter the store. Having Buddy there was the reason that I was able to go by myself, feel comfortable with the driving, and feel comfortable with, making sure that a migraine wasn't going to sneak up on me at some point while I was out. But then me being alone and me having Buddy ended up being an inconvenience that made the trip literally take 50% longer than it needed to, because I got stuck there. I'm having a ton of trouble with stuttering right now because it's late in the day, but I wanted to get that story out. If you already saw this story on my Instagram stories on Tuesday, sorry for the repeat.